First up, we have Sumaya Mughal. She is a senior BBC broadcaster and the founder as well as the creator of the multi-award-winning podcast, Brown Gal Can't Swim. If you aren't familiar with it, here are a few of her BBC colleagues to tell you a little bit more.
BBC radio presenter Sumaya Mughal.
All this week, we've been following
Sumaya Mughal.
8 weeks ago, Olympian Becky Adlington. Rebecca Adlington set Sumaya a challenge.
She's recorded a podcast about her experience.
Brown Girl Can't Swim.
Let's take a look.
I would like to dedicate this award to every single adult who cannot swim and feels embarrassed and scared to take the plunge, pun intended. I hope the podcast helps. Thank you.
Other people have started to swim because of Brown Girl Can't Swim. That's amazing.
It is amazing, isn't it?
I think by the end of the 8 weeks, if I can be like, hey Becky, shall we race? I think that would be a great thing to work towards.
To be honest, I think you'd probably beat me.
How do you get used to this? I feel like the water's coming out of my eyes.
Amazing stuff. Hopefully that's whet your appetite for what is a fascinating tale and podcast. Sumaya not only, as you saw there, learns to swim herself, but brings others along on the journey with her as well. It's a journey which has directly led to more adults taking part in swimming, which is something that we're also passionate, obviously, about here today. So without further ado, please let's welcome Sumaya to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. Sumaya Mughal.
Thank you, Nick. Hello, good morning, labrit. I've been practicing that all morning. How did I do? Fantastic. That's the hardest part of the presentation. I can do the rest. And a big thank you to European Aquatics. So 18 months ago, I couldn't swim at all. So to be standing on this stage feels incredibly surreal, and for that I am hugely grateful. As Nick mentioned there, I'm a senior journalist and presenter for the BBC, but also the founder of Brown Gal Can't Swim, which is a podcast and social media campaign which follows my journey of learning to swim in 8 weeks, but also tackling a 500-meter open water challenge. That challenge was set by Rebecca Adlington, and the first female black swimmer to compete in an Olympic Games for Team GB, Alice Deering. So I bet you're wondering, okay, Sumaya, why can't you swim and why couldn't you swim? There are a few factors, as you can see, that contributed to my journey. The first is around the fact that I had a few swimming lessons as a kid, as we do in the UK. It's mandatory in sort of primary education. But those sessions are divided into children that can swim and those that can't swim. Those sessions with the children that can't swim often have varying degrees of ability, or they did when I was younger, and I didn't pick it up in school. So if you don't pick it up in school, the onus falls on your parents to teach you, right? My mum did take me for a few extra swimming lessons, but when she went to those lessons, she was told if Sumaya can swim 25 meters, then she can swim. She recalled when I was about 7 years old, me swimming a 25-meter length on my back, but I left those lessons feeling like I couldn't. I never learned how to tread water. I never learned how to scull. I don't feel like I ever learned how to float. I never learned putting my face in the water and swimming on my front, and I never felt comfortable swimming in deep water. So I guess the question is 25 meters a single length enough to qualify you being able to swim? For me, as a child at that time, it was not. So 20 years on, I kept it a secret that I couldn't swim because I felt very embarrassed. And a number of other factors also contributed as to why I didn't learn. Cost, my parents didn't have the money to be able to take me to extra swimming lessons in the UK, so that also contributed, which I think is a universal factor across the board. The other thing was whether swimming was a priority. So my mum could swim, but my dad can't swim. And given the lack of money that we had and the fact that for him it wasn't a priority because he was born in Pakistan, and in Pakistan, learning to swim when he was younger was not part of the education system. Instead, academia was encouraged, not physical activity. My dad raised me from the age of 12 onwards, so I grew up with a father that couldn't swim, and I didn't learn in school. I guess I didn't have a parent that could bring that skill into my life. The really interesting thing, though, when I was researching about my own family's learn to swim journey, is that my granddad in Pakistan could swim. And the reason why is because he had to swim to school across a village. It's really crazy. So my granddad in Pakistan could swim. Some kids walk to school, some kids cycle. My granddad swam. But my father never picked up the skill. As I became an adult, other factors became important in terms of my journey of not learning. I am a Pakistani British Muslim woman, and in Islam, modesty is important. Now, modesty is so subject to opinion. It is a massive spectrum. But let's just say that I have never worn a sleeveless top in front of my dad. So going to a swimming lesson with my arms, my legs, my back, wearing a conventional swimming costume was something that to this day I would never do in front of my father. So modesty became an important factor in terms of finding a swimming costume which I would feel comfortable wearing in front of my family. The longer that this went on, the more embarrassed I felt about the fact that I didn't have a skill that many children have. So I kept it a secret from friends, from family for about 20 years. And the longer that it went on, the more scared I became. I was terrified of deep water. The idea of my feet not being able to touch the ground in water scared me so much, and the idea of not being able to hold onto the side of a pool. So that fear just meant that I didn't put myself in situations in which I was ever in deep water, including holidays with friends, etc. So why did I decide to learn? I was doing an interview with Alice Deering, who I mentioned earlier on. She is the first female black swimmer to compete in an Olympic Games for Team GB. It was ahead of the Tokyo Olympics, and it was on my radio show. And she was talking about some of the challenges that the black community might face when swimming, like having swim caps that are large enough for their hair, etc. And I saw this girl who is not too far off my own age, championing her community and elevating the things that they perhaps needed in order to swim. So I looked to my own community, the South Asian community, to see if there was an equivalent of Alice. And I couldn't really find one. There wasn't really organizations, there weren't Olympians in the UK at least. But I knew myself from the factors that we've just discussed that there would definitely be factors as to why my community may not swim, like modesty, like female-only swim sessions, etc., etc. But I didn't know how much of a problem this was, and I wasn't ready to share with the world that I couldn't swim because I was still embarrassed. So I did what I do best. I went on social media to see if there was anyone else that couldn't swim. And these are a few of the responses.
I'm trans and I can't swim because of my fear of feeling safe and accepted around others.
I can't swim because my mum was afraid of water, and now I am too, and I think I'm just too old to learn how to swim.
I'm not a confident swimmer because when I was younger, due to cultural reasons, I had to withdraw from my swimming lessons because of the lack of modest swimmer available at the time.
I can't swim because I used to dread swimming lessons at school, and then I felt way too embarrassed to take it up as an adult.
I used to hate swimming lessons. I had to wear white leggings underneath my swimming costume, and it was just another reason to make me feel like the odd one out. I was already the only brown girl in the school.
So I guess what I realized was that I wasn't the only person that couldn't swim, but I couldn't find any data that was specific to the South Asian community that touched on the factors that I've discussed with you today. So I decided to contact Rebecca Adlington. I needed some talent behind this. I didn't know Becky. She's from Mansfield, which is about half an hour, if that, down the road from where I live. I sent her an email, and I said, I want to do something about this. Excuse me. So Becky said, yes, of course, I'll support you. And then she and Alice set me the challenge of learning in 8 weeks and tackling a 500-meter open water challenge. Look at the contrast. I work for the BBC and I have a radio show. So I thought, okay, let's make a podcast. The BBC commissioned that podcast, Brown Girl Can't Swim. But on the way, sorry, can I just get some water? If that'd be really great. Thanks so much. But on the way, there were a few unexpected challenges. Halfway through my swim journey on week 4, this happened.
Just been swimming and a pretty mental thing just happened. A guy almost drowned in the pool today. I don't know, I feel like it really brought home the importance of why you need to learn to swim. You know, that happened in a controlled, safe environment where there were lifeguards on side to jump in and to help. Meet Harris. He was the man who almost drowned. A few weeks later, I caught up with him to see how he was. He told me what happened.
So I just jumped into the water from the middle lane and I started swimming. And just before the end, when I lost my breath, I tried to stand up on my feet and there was no floor. And the water was above my head and I was drowning. And I just raised my hand and thankfully there was a lifeguard who saw me and he jumped in and thankfully saved me.
To literally see someone in the water almost lose their life because of the very thing that you're scared of yourself is a lot to process. So honestly, I don't know how I'm going to feel being back in the water today.
I'll be honest, I almost withdrew from the campaign because to see the thing that you are most scared of in your life almost happen in front of you was terrifying. And also, Harris was like me. He's from my community. He's also Pakistani and he's also Muslim. So I guess because of that and witnessing what I had, another part of me realized that this challenge was not going to be a physical challenge. It was going to be a mental challenge of me overcoming that fear. And actually, it was really important that I got in that lake and I learned to swim. And I learned to swim not only in a controlled, safe environment as a pool, but also to understand water safety. So, do you want to see a bit of the final challenge? No one wants to hear it, see it apparently. Does anybody want to see a bit of the final challenge? Come on, okay, so you can watch it, but you've got to make sure that you don't judge my freestyle and don't judge my backstroke, okay? All right, here we go. This is a little bit.
It's raining, it's cold, I can't feel my feet, but I just need to focus on getting to the next buoy. I'm a fifth of the way through, but the wind is blowing that tow float so hard it's getting in the way, and I'm struggling to swim. The rain is coming down hard, but I just need to keep swimming.
75 metres.
I can do that. Okay, girl.
Yeah, come
Let's
on.
make it count.
Let's do this.
It's been a few months of training, but it's taken me years to get to this point. But it's done. It's over. Thank you. It was really, really hard. It was hard. If I can do it, and I could not swim at all, then anyone can do it.
I always get really emotional watching that because as you can see, it literally changed my life. And it was really, really cold, so I was just happy to be out of the water. So that was the final challenge, which I completed on October 4th last year. The impact of Brown Girl Can't Swim, though, since then has been more than I could have ever expected. The podcast won 3 awards from 3 very different communities. The first was from the city of Nottingham, where I'm from, for contribution to the community. And that means a lot because that was an award that was related to, you know, my local swimming pools, my local swimming teacher, my local lifeguards. And so I guess the grassroots level is really important to me for us to understand in order for us to implement, you know, learn to swim programs. So to get that recognition from Nottingham felt important to me on a personal level. The second one I didn't expect was the British Sports Journalism Awards, which is a national, you know, it's a national award, as Nick will tell you about, with all of the big sports broadcasters. The BBC included Sky Sports, ESPN, The Athletic, and it won Best Podcast. It was up against the Qatar World Cup and the Lionesses, so that was quite crazy. And the final award was a few weeks ago from the Asian Media Awards, and that was recognition from the South Asian community. And that was really important because this podcast was about empowering and bringing a voice to that very community. I went on and did a TED Talk, and I spoke at the Raw Life Saving Society conference. Thank you, Ashley McKeever. If it wasn't for her being in that audience, I wouldn't be here today. But I guess for me, the other thing that was important that came from Brown Girl Can't Swim, or after Brown Girl Can't Swim, was that Swim England commissioned the research that was required specific to the South Asian community. And it's really helpful, actually, because it talks about some of the things that I discussed a little bit earlier on, like modesty, for example. They found, on average, only 32% of the South Asian community in England are able to swim 25 meters unaided, compared to the national average of 80%. They found, when participating in swimming on average across gender, nationality, and religion, if you are female, Pakistani, and Muslim, you are likely to face the highest number of barriers. This was my assumption, but it wasn't something that I could quantify at the time. But to have this data and this research is hugely helpful in my mission with Brown Girl Can't Swim. But the thing that I'm most proud of is that my dad started to learn. Look at him. I tried to find the most embarrassing photographs. So you can hear a little bit of his journey on my podcast. He's 61, he's a doctor, he can't swim. He saves people's lives every single day, but he himself doesn't have a life-saving skill, which is crazy. But he's also very influential within our community, and it was important that I had a male, that I had someone that was older, that I had a father that could also reach the other community that I can't, you know? So I'm really, really proud of him, and he is on his Learn to Swim journey, which is brilliant. Do we have any questions? The final thing that I would like to say, actually, is that Yusra Mardini said something yesterday about home. And I guess I feel like after 27 years, I have found that within swimming. And I am grateful to, therefore, the aquatic community for welcoming me into your family. Thank you.
And yeah, please do keep that applause coming in. Obviously, such an inspirational journey that you've been on. Tell us a little bit, though, about the podcast and getting it commissioned, because I know the way the BBC can sometimes work, things aren't always straightforward. What kind of barriers did you face? Because it's made such a difference since you've managed to force your way through with it.
Yeah, it wasn't something that the BBC ever formally commissioned until I began it. It was something that I knew we had to talk about, but for whatever reason, it wasn't something that they could see, as needing to commission. But I wasn't willing to wait for a broadcaster or for anyone to say, yeah, you know what, we should tell this story. So I just started it myself, and then halfway through the journey, BBC Sounds got in touch and said, yes, we would like to support you, and they gave me a producer to create the podcast. So I just did it myself.
And there's an attitude I'm sure many people can pick up on there. Sometimes you've just got to kind of seize that momentum. What does that mean to you personally, though, the response that it's had, and how proud are you of what you've continued to fight for?
I think there's two things here. Obviously, on a personal level, I can now swim, and that's great. But actually, one of the things that I love most about my journey is the fact that earlier this year, it was my birthday. I went to Portugal with my favorite people ever, my best friends, and I went into the sea in Albufeira for the first time, and I swam, and I didn't freak out, and I was in deep water. Yeah. And for me, that was a massive thing and hugely, hugely empowering. But beyond Brown Girl Can't Swim, it was never just about me. Mm-hmm. It was about other people. It was about the mission that we are all supporting here today. And I guess I'm only one story, and I can only do so much. So to have the recognition from TED and the RLSS, or whoever it is, all of you in your own ways, that's really what I need moving forward, is to have other people advocate and take from that experience. And if I can help in any way, I think there's a QR code, then please get in touch with me, because I would love to help. There we go, hopefully that works.
Make sure you can scan that, definitely. As you said, this is about more than yourself, but it has made a profound difference to your life. I mean, for those out there who want to kind of spread this message, how much of a difference would it have made if you had been able to, learn at a younger age? You're now trying to instill that within your community and elsewhere?
Yeah, I think, if you think about the situations in which you might need to swim, it may be being on holiday, for example, with friends, and you might think, okay, it's just going on holiday. I studied actually in Constance, which is a really beautiful town in the south of Germany, and there is a gorgeous lake there. And my whole time at university, I never went in the lake, I never went paddleboarding, I never went rowing, I never did any of that stuff. Nobody knew I couldn't swim, so I just looked really antisocial. So yes, though it is something which you may think, oh, it's just, only when you're around water. Actually, no, because that contributes to so many other things, like feeling socially excluded, like feeling shame, like feeling embarrassment. I wouldn't have felt, obviously, those feelings, but I think from a water safety perspective, sometimes you or someone else you may know may be in a situation that they don't expect where they're in water, And in that case, you can't prepare for that. You don't know what could happen, but you do need to know what you can do in a setting like that. But at the same time, I'm glad in a funny way that I didn't learn, because there was a reason I didn't learn, and it was brown girl can't swim.
Yeah, absolutely, so powerful. Anyone have a question out there? I think people may be still waking up and need a coffee in the refreshment break. But we have one over here. Fantastic, thank you, Sabine.
Hi. I just want to say that I had goosebumps all time during your presentation, and I don't know if you realize that you actually you learned two disciplines of the sixth discipline in aquatics. It's open water as well, and they're both very different. So it took me a long time to get used to open water as well, and I wanted to know if you feel more comfortable in the pool with the chlorine and everything, like with limited space, or in open water. And I would also like to know if where you want to take this. Thank you.
Thank you, and I loved your presentation yesterday. Thank you. Okay, so pool any day, right? Because it's a controlled setting and all the rest of it. But I also think the reason that I'm probably more comfortable in a pool is because I don't open water swim in the UK as much as I can just go to the pool. Like 365 days a year, you can go to the pool. This time of year, any time of year potentially, that's winter, I'm not going to open water swim because it's really, really cold, right? But I think that's relevant because the more you do something, the more you become comfortable with it. So if I'm only doing it for a few months in a year, and I'm going from scratch, then it is something that I definitely feel more uncomfortable doing, for sure. And it still scares me. I'm not standing here saying, I am now fearless of the water. No, I am still scared of the sea. I am still scared of that lake that I swam in. I was scared when I got out of the water. So it is still something that freaks me out. But I think that's a good thing, because I think if you don't have a healthy respect for the water, then that is also problematic. In terms of where I want to take it, there are many things that I could do with Brown Girl Can't Swim. Does she learn to lifeguard? Does she do something else? I think the most important thing is that the story goes away from me and becomes about other people and getting them to learn to swim. I've always had, I don't know why, an affinity to want to work in the refugee space, actually, and to support communities that come to the UK that are refugees or otherwise, and teach them how to swim. I don't know why I have that affinity, but I do. But I guess first we need to get my dad learning and doing 500 meters in a lake, and then we continue the mission of other people and bring it away from me. It's about other people now.
Amazing. Just before, please do applaud. And for those that would like now to listen to the full podcast, how can they do so?
You can listen to the podcast on BBC Sounds. Okay, so out comes Samaya on the radio. So if you scan this QR code, it will take you to my link tree. So there's a few links on there, and one of the links is the Brown Girl Can't Swim podcast. You can listen to the whole thing in an hour. It's not too much longer than me standing here and talking. And you'll meet Becky, and you'll meet Alice, and you'll meet my swim teacher, Vicky, and you'll meet my dad. And there will also be elements of the podcast that I've not been able to touch on in this presentation. But yeah, I really hope it's beneficial to you, and really please do get in touch if there's anything that I can do to support your respective federations.
Ladies and gentlemen, Samaya Mughal, please put your hands together, and I will just get together her gift as just a little token of our appreciation. Thank you so much. There you go.
And can we say thank you to Nick, please? So it's really hard what he's doing, because I do it. But yesterday he spent the whole day, and you were brilliant, actually. So good. And he's a bit of a legend in the BBC sports space as well. So, you know, the real celebrity over here.
I'm going to stop you there. That's too kind. Sumaya will be back to take over my role a little bit later and give me a bit of a break. Thank you so much.